Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Travels with Tulsans, sponsored by the Friends of the Library, City County Libraries. I'm Doris Degner Foster, and we're glad to have you join us on this beautiful day on the 7th of our 2025 Travels with Tulsans presentations. Next Wednesday will be our last Travels with Tulsans this year. We are ending the series with an interesting and fascinating quest as Floretta Reed journeys from Oklahoma to Ghana, Africa, to discover her ancestors' history to better understand her own. Our traveler today, letting us come along while they cruise through Asia, is our friend Bob Caruso. Bob is originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He went to Duquesne. I didn't know it was spelled that way. He's been married to his wife, Ann, who is a teacher, a retired teacher, I understand, for 57 years. Bob was in the U.S. Army for 2 years, including a tour of Vietnam. They have 2 children, son Rob, a physical therapist who was born while Bob was deployed, and then daughter Erin, an audiologist, came along to join the family. Rob and Erin each have a daughter and a son, and they have 4 grown grandchildren. The first great-grandchild is expected in July. Bob started his career with Westinghouse in Pittsburgh, then in Philadelphia in purchasing and project management. The family moved to Tulsa in 1983, where Bob was employed by Oil Dynamics and CRC Evans. He retired in 2004. Bob keeps busy with Friends of the Library, Knights of Columbus, St. Anne's Church, and the Broken Arrow Senior Center Book Club. He enjoys family, friends, traveling, entertainment, and reading. Please join me in welcoming Bob Caruso.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks very much for coming. About this time last year, my wife and I did a. Got to speak up a little more with the mic. Sorry. Okay. We'll start again. About this time last year, my wife and I took a nice long cruise through Asia. And it was, for the most part, places we hadn't seen before. So it was a wonderful opportunity to see a lot of countries, a lot of sites, and in one trip. So as you can see, we started in Singapore. We essentially cruised north. We went to Thailand, then Cambodia, then Vietnam, then South Korea, or China, excuse me, South Korea, and finally in Japan. So it was a lot of countries, a lot of stops, and also it was a 35-day cruise that I'm going to try to compress into 35 minutes. Start. Hang on to your hats, and but we always try to pick out our excursions, the sites we see, so that it's of varying interest, various things from history to cities and rural city applications and all. So, and this one was a very successful trip for us. And not all the sites were great, but overall it was a wonderful trip. So, moving forward here. Okay, after really a long flight, we landed in Singapore, and we were just immediately impressed by the Singapore airport. This is, well, hopefully I'm looking to shut us down. the Singapore airport. This is actually a garden in the airport itself. So we knew the good things were coming because it was just a spectacular place. And so we left, went to our hotel, and we went on our balcony in the hotel. And this was the view from our balcony. And the structures, the architecture was really amazing. And we just knew this was going to be a real treat. But we didn't have a heck of a lot of time. So we just booked an extra day to see the city before the cruise started. And you can probably see that there's a lot of storm clouds in the air. So we opted to do a hop on, hop off bus tour of the city, just try to catch as much as we could. So this is just some of the sights of the city. This is Marina Bay. And once again, the architecture and the design of the city was just amazing. And the three-tiered building, this three-tiered building is the Sands Hotel. And it's in a very exclusive place. And you'll notice it looks like there's a ship on top of this guy. And on it are pools and restaurants and amazing, but not atypical. There's a great deal of foliage, trees, vegetation on top of that ship. But trees and vegetation are really a keynote of Singapore. They are incredibly advanced ecologically. And so they have wonderful water retention reclamation systems, their solar power and all. And this garden by the bay, this is one of the elements here. It looks like this is a bunch of trees, but these are collection points for solar and for water retention. This is just maybe a larger picture of what's here. This is called Berlian. Whoops, I knew I was going to do that. Berlian, and also just a kind of a large picture here of the Air and Science Museum. But the entire city was really like that. It was just a joy. But those rain clouds you saw before, they burst, and we had to cut our Singapore tour short. So anyhow, we went to next day. There we go. The next day we boarded our ship, and this was Holland America, the MS Westerdam, and it was kind of a smaller version of ships. It was 2,000 passengers and 800 crew. We've been on a lot bigger. We've been on a lot smaller, but it was a wonderful ride. Great entertainment, great food, great people, which is one of the wonderful elements of cruises. You meet lots of folks from all countries all over the world. So it was not only, it was great fun and great conversation. So our first stop was, let's see, I'm lost already on my notes here. So, okay. The first stop was to go to Thailand, and just for orientation, landmark we all know is Bangkok here. And we went to 3 different sites. One was in the Gulf of Thailand, and this is Koh Samui Island. Then we went also to this, I'm going to probably mess up these names here, so bear with me. This was up here, there was a site called Ayutthaya, and then there was a site here called Pattaya. But we'll see the pictures, and hopefully I won't have to repeat those names again. So the first one was Koh Samui, and this is an island. And so we went to these temples there, and this was the island south of the mainland. So we went to some temples, and I got to bear with me on some names. Wat Phi Yai and Wat Phi Lim. I'm not going to repeat. But they were huge expanses, great lands, great amount of land, just amazing sights, so colorful, so beautiful. And they had everything from temples and such to mummified monks in this. It was just a amazing, amazing display. And they are, we found out that this island is not just for temples and such, but it's there's a wonderful beaches, which we didn't get to experience, and really a party hardy haven as well. So they're really heavily promoting tourism on the really all of Thailand, but this one in particular is a very popular spot. And so our next this is still at Koh Samui, and these are really the featured places to see the features of the island. And the golden Buddha, the big Buddha there is, it's about 40 feet tall. And to get up to the top, you had to take these stairs here, and you had to do that having taken your shoes off. So my wife, she did the hard duty, and she climbed up the stairs to take the pictures at the top, and my duty was to watch her shoes. Then there were some other Buddhas. This was called Bodhi, and it was a Buddha that would celebrate joy and entertainment. It was really just so colorful. It was just a treat to see. And the last one is and I got to bear with me on this one here. So this is Guan Yin. Guan Yin. It's an 18-arm Buddha, and that Buddha was to grant joy to healthy children, and it was also to protect sailors. Didn't quite see the connection there, but apparently that's what that she's all about. And but the site itself, as you can see, was just so very colorful, very tourist friendly. It was just a great place to see. It was a fun spot, and lots, very photogenic. So we moved on from that excursion, different day, to this is Atu Haya, and this was north of Bangkok. And this was an archaeological site that was the former capital of Siam way back when. And it was a capital in the 14th to the 18th century. And the name means invincible city, which is kind of ironic because it wasn't. It was destroyed by the Burmese army in 1767, and the city was never rebuilt. But it stands as a site, to a World Heritage Site, and just had a fabulous display of urban planning with moats and canals and streets. In fact, the layout was so progressive and positive that when they decided to reinstall or recreate a capital in Bangkok, they used the layout of this city as the template for the new city. And more importantly, they've maintained this in its state. It just captures the history of Thailand back in those previous centuries. And what was also amazing is the access that you had. These old structures, you could go up these and into these buildings. There weren't any railings and such, but you had really free access to all of these places. So it was really an amazing situation. Uh, This is a little bit more of that same site. And this, these buildings were called prangs, the tall structures and all, but it's the city. And the face in the middle was a statue that was essentially decapitated by the Burmese, and it was thought to be a symbol of carrying on. So although this was decapitated, it got lodged in this tree, the base of this tree, a Bodhi tree, and it still faces the city and was thought to be a miracle. So, and it was great fun just walking through the area. And they did have a potential to do an elephant carriage, but I passed. I thought that was going bordering on animal cruelty, so I passed on that. So we're now going to go to a new site, and unlike the old one, which was historical back into the previous centuries, this is a place, a temple in the making. This was the sanctuary. It was funded and designed by a Thai businessman, and the creation of this began in the 1980s, and it's expected to be completed perhaps next year. So it was a site under construction. That was us. We had to wear hard hats as we did the tour because construction was going on as we witnessed the site. And it's a all wooden design. It's manned by craftsmen doing some amazingly ornate, beautiful carvings. As you can see, this is the work in process here of these carvings. And this is the outside of just how beautiful they are. And really, I couldn't find a place that was similar, except I thought it looked like the Vatican on steroids. It was just stunning. And this is more of the inside. If you can just kind of get a grasp of how detailed, and this was still, they were still adding to this constantly. It was a kind of an amazing display. And truly for me, it was like the most interesting sight of this entire trip because it was done right under our very nose. It was great. Okay, now we're shifting countries here pretty quickly here. So we're gonna go to Cambodia now. And we went to Sihanoukville, Cambodia. And we have to say we were disappointed with Cambodia. We went to a fishing village, and we saw the fishing industry process on display, and it just smacked of lack of hygiene and all. And it was reminiscent of other previous experiences where the local river waters were the water source for drinking, bathing, and worse. And you can see this woman is preparing and cleaning this fish to be packaged here. And if you can see all this stuff, it was far less than hygienic. And so unlike most of the other Asian countries, there didn't seem to be much progress made here. But we, it's,
Did you eat fish after that?
I'm sorry.
Did you eat fish after that?
On the ship. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so we also went to, there was some temples that we toured as well, and they were okay, but we were not really pleased with Cambodia, and really it just had it smacked of the memories of the Pol Pot, Khmer Rouge regime, where they killed like a quarter of their own people and all, and then the word was that the country was really highly financed and really controlled by China, and there developed a lot of crime and intrigue. So we weren't terribly impressed. So now we're gonna move on to Vietnam, and okay, so that's me. Many years ago on a much longer and infinitely less enjoyable cruise in the Mekong, and I really never thought I would ever go back, and never even considered it for many years. But I had a friend, lifelong friend, who had similar wartime experiences, and he told me that he went and he found it cathartic, and so it got me thinking about it and the opportunity to see not only Vietnam but a bunch of other countries. So we said, okay, we'll do that. So we'll give it a try. So anyhow, the cruise really had 3 stops that we chose, and actually this is where I was down here, and that's where I was stationed in the Delta. But north of that was Ho Chi Minh City or Saigon, and then we went to the Trang, and I'm having trouble seeing that myself. And then all the way up at the top here is Halong Bay in the Gulf of Tonkin. So our first stop was to get to Saigon, and so I didn't get to see the jungles from my memory, but I did see the rice paddies, the waterways that dominate the place, and we did get up to Saigon itself, and I do remember the streets being littered with bikes and such and people. It was really a hectic and bizarre and noisy environment, and that sure didn't change. And I do remember also that this outfit, it's called owl dyes, and these were really one of the more pretty ones that I've ever seen. But this was a common attire for the people back in the 60s. So in fact, I bought one of these and brought it home to my wife way back when. Okay, so it's kind of hard to escape the history of Vietnam, and we're in Saigon or Ho Chi Minh City now, and this is the Independence Palace, and I think we all remember, those pictures, seeing it on TV, the tanks crashing through the gate as the communists officially took over the country and all. So we toured all that area, and there were still structures that were built by the Americans way back when that are still being used by the Vietnamese. And then there's the celebrations of the communist victory with that flag. And I must say, being back in this area, it wasn't overwhelmingly cathartic to me. I still had some harsh memories of those days. But the rest of the country, which was vastly different than this area and the Delta, were really quite interesting. So, well, more of Saigon, it was really a modern city. It's like a 10 million population. So it was very modern and such, but I preferred to go see some of the landscape. So we went to Nha Trang, and it's a little bit further north, and this is the Sun Pagoda, and it was a beautiful sight, just a beautiful sight. And the location of this Buddha was up so a whole bunch of stairs, and of course none of them had rails. So there's various levels and all. So I made it up to about that level there, and that's where the reclining Buddha was. So I took that picture, but I left it up to my trusty scout here to make it to the crest here, and she took the pictures of the Buddha at the top. But it was a beautiful sight. Once again, quite welcoming, very tourist friendly, and I'm sorry. Oh, thank you for asking. Yes, it's not a swastika. I mean, it's the same symbol, but it's actually a symbol that came from India about 12,000 years ago. But it's a symbol of prosperity and good luck, unlike the Nazi symbol. But the site was gorgeous, and really enjoyed the visit. And our next stop was Halong Bay, and really that was the one site I was really looking forward to seeing, and I wasn't disappointed at all. It was an amazing site. It's a group of like 1,600 mostly unoccupied islands in the Gulf of Tonkin, and we got into it in the morning, and it was really foggy and was really eerie, is what it was. But we just cruised on a small ship through this area, and truly it was a place to just look silently and breathe and appreciate the area. It was quite really stunning. And to have a place that was that peaceful in a country that's lived with turmoil for so many decades was quite a wonderful experience. And this is some more views of Halong, which was a terrific site. And each of these little outcroppings look different than the other. It was just a great scene. We thoroughly enjoyed it. It was on our top list of enjoyable sites. Okay, we're gonna move to another country quickly now. So we're gonna go to China. We had two sites in China, Hong Kong and Shanghai. And as expected, Hong Kong was overcast and really a bustling city. It was we went to this Victoria Peak to look down on the city, because to be honest with you, if you're down on ground level, you can't see anything. It's just kind of a mass of buildings, and it actually has really the most skyscrapers of any city in the world. And so seeing it from above was a lot better than seeing a one building right in front of you. And but we did also manage to go and take a sampan ride. Whoops, here I go again. And get on the waterway, and that was also really quite enjoyable. It was a beautiful city when we could see it, and I particularly enjoyed the scene. This last scene is from our balcony on our ship for Hong Kong at night. So it was not an overwhelming different kind of a excursion, but it was still there was a lot of fun to see it. It was just a great city to view. Then we went to Shanghai. And once again, another big city. So it was kind of more of the same of buildings, but we did experience a couple neat technological issues or features. And this building, it's called the Jinmao Tower. It's 88 stories high. And we took an elevator that went up to the top of this building in a flash. And you could not sense any movement. We've never kind of experienced anything quite like that. And when we got to the crest, the overlook was fabulous. So we could see it. It was a smoggy city, but it was a great look at the city. So we caught all the areas to watch. And then while we were on the top, we had a feature that this is looking down the core of the building. So that's 88 floors. These are floors down here, all these little catacombs there. So it was kind of a neat experience and all. Still Shanghai, the city was very nice, very enjoyable and all. And we had another technology treat. We did a round trip to and from the airport on this train, and this is a maglev train. It's a magnetic levitation. Whoa, goodness, runaway. And this train could get up to like 268 miles an hour. And so we boarded this train, and just to put it into perspective, we went parallel to a highway, this highway here, and I'll see if I can beam it right. And while these cars here were going, I don't know, 65 miles an hour or whatever, okay, no, I don't know how I'm gonna get to turn this guy on here. Tara. Somewhere, somehow. Thank you. Tara to the rescue. Okay, so this kind of, don't go away because I got to shut it off here. That gives you an idea how fast this train was going. And just like that elevator we were talking about, it was, you couldn't sense you really couldn't sense move. It was like floating. Sorry for the foul up here. And like I said, the city itself was quite impressive with beautiful structures and all. And I like this guy on the right. It just reminded me of a church key, which moves me into our next venture. We're going to go into Japan, in Kagoshima, Japan. And so I was soaking up the ambiance and my feet simultaneously and all. And I did want to say that I did sample as many beers as I could possibly have in all of the countries, and the beers of Asia were delicious. And the one on the left was from Thailand, the one on the right was from Vietnam, and Japan was great. So it was always good things to soak up, not only the warm water on my feet, but also to soak up some suds as well. So we're in Kagoshima, and that was the home of a volcano and really beautiful gardens as well. And it was a treat because really all these gardens and places that they were just so well cared for, well kept, very photogenic, and thoroughly enjoyed it. So it was a beautiful site. But we left from this site of beauty to a site of tragedy, and that was to Nagasaki. And as we all know, you think of Nagasaki, you think of the atomic bomb being dropped on the city. And in August of 45, a few days after Hiroshima bomb was exploded, this fat boy bomb like this was dropped, and it actually was exploded about 500 meters above the ground. And these are pictures of ground zero, which were wiped out, except amazingly, there's one little structure here that somehow or other survived it. But there were 150,000 killed and wounded as a result. So it was a very, very tragic situation. Now, had not that bomb been dropped, the war would have continued on. World War II, there would have been, the necessity of an invasion, and who knows how many more people would have been killed on both sides. So in some ways, it saved lives, but it was still a national tragedy for the Japanese. And there is a beautiful peace park in Nagasaki there, and really there are statues from all different countries who donated these to not only remember but just to empathize with the victims. And really, it's a plea that you never have a situation like that again. And this was really the top statue that was built by the Japanese, and it was very symbolic. We found out in in his right arm, he's pointing to the sky, really pointing to the threat of another bomb. His left arm was extended out, and that was a sign of peace and serenity. And you can barely see this, his eyes are closed, and that's his prayer for all the victims of the war entirely. So it was really a very moving sight and a beautiful sight, but it just brought you back to earth on things. So we then moved to South Korea. Anybody getting seasick yet? No. And we toured the city, which in South Korea was very, very progressive, very positive. We went to a seaport, and it was hyper busy. So they're doing great, unlike their neighbors to the north that are struggling with their lives. But a site in South Korea that we found moving was there was a cemetery, and it was there to honor the soldiers who died defending South Korea, and as really a United Nations cemetery. So there's 2,300 folks that were buried at this site, and they came from 11 different countries. And also, it was really a very fitting resting place for people who made that ultimate sacrifice in the defense of South Korea. We're now going to go to Japan again. We did bounce from Japan to South Korea back to Japan, but this is Himeji, and this was a Himeji castle that was first built in 1333. So it goes back a ways. It's been renovated a gazillion times and all. And although the city itself was heavily bombed during World War II, no damage was ever done to the castle itself. So it was a beautiful structure. And to get into this, it was a heck of a walk, I got to tell you. And I got up to, oops, here we go again. I got up to maybe this, about up to there and all. But my wife, she did the top. So she went to the crest. This is really the roof here of that castle, and this is the moat below it. And I'll show you the gardens in just a moment here. But this was the building itself and all. So it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and quite a beautiful place to visit. And below the site was the garden, and the garden was fabulous. But this was only built in 1992, so it was current events. But you can just see it was just so well done, as we came to expect. All the Japanese gardens were just immaculate, so peaceful, so wonderful to tour. And as my wife and I always say, when we see gardens that, are just so gorgeous and all, we always say the same thing. Yeah. But we can't and won't. But it was a wonderful display. Okay, now. I'm sorry.
Where geographically is that in Japan? West Coast?
Oh yeah, it's definitely coastal. Yeah, it's hard to get not coastal in Japan, really. We went to really a brief trip to Osaka, and it was very positive, pretty city. In fact, it was a joke. We tried to find debris in the city. It was so clean, and I searched the streets as we cruised by to try to find some trash and couldn't. So I don't know if that's a testament to good citizenship or law enforcement, but whatever it is, it certainly works. And it's a big city, mind you, but my favorite picture was this one, really. And it was this solitary guy in a 3 million population city all by himself. So I like that picture myself. So that's why I shared it. We had one really final spot that we went to at the end of our tour, at the end of this presentation. That was Fujinomiya, and once again, beautiful gardens and grounds, and just a joy to experience. It was just wonderful, and of course it had really the most iconic feature of Japan, and that was, of course, Mount Fuji, and that's what I'll close my presentation on. But wouldn't you know, these damn tourists got in front of the picture. So I couldn't get a clear view of the mountain. But anyhow, that's my presentation. I'll take some questions if anybody's got some questions. Yes.
Exactly what the cruise offered
The locations of the landings were all fixed by the ship, the cruise ship. But selection of the individual excursions or where we went within that area we chose, and to be honest with you, we labored that, because if you go to a country, you're seeing really just a brief snapshot. So you want to get a little bit of this, a little bit of that, to really get a feel for the countryside. So we tried to do some things like we saw city life, we saw urban or rural life. We wanted history. We're kind of history people, and so we get to choose within that. But there's constraints. We don't take excursions that are tremendously physically challenging, more for me than my wife. But we certainly see really a nice cross section of the cities and the areas and all. But a lot of it's our own choice. I'm sorry.
Nice, even the side trips were organized by the.
Yeah. Oh, you could freelance as well, but being in the Orient, that was not too hard. we never considered that. There's too many opportunities, I think, for nasty. And so we did utilize the cruise ship, the cruise lines excursions exclusively on this.
How close did you get to Mount Fuji? Is this as close as you could get?
Actually, we did get closer than this. There was a world, there was a center that was further towards the mount, but it was really not much more of a vantage point. Really, you're still a far distance from it. So it was kind of nice looking, and we were fortunate to have a clear day. As we were throughout the trip, we had good weather, other than Singapore, which was really disappointing. But we saw as much as we could. Yes, sir.
Did you do excursions from the ship or on your own?
Excursions from the ship. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Oh.
What was your favorite beer?
That one from Thailand. I knew you'd ask the one. So the really what Ang, I think it was called Ang Bar, and good stuff. Not quite as good as Yingling, but quite good. I knew that would be on your mind, Matt. Yes. Joe. Well, the food was exclusively on the ship, and it was fabulous. The food and the drink was fabulous, and we only had really a couple meals on board, or not on board, but as we did an excursion, and they weren't really localized foods and all. We were kind of cautious of that hygiene issue. It's very easy to get some illnesses while you're on a cruise with a gazillion people. And you don't want to add any fuel to the fire here by eating in some questionable foods and with questionable hygiene. Anybody else? Yes.
What was security like, customs going through from?
Okay. Okay, China sucks. They put us through the ringer to get a visa, and really, we thought we had to give them our firstborn. It was so demanding, so probing of our lives, and even as we sailed, they prohibited any photography of the coastline.
When did you go? What year?
Last February. Yeah. And it was, but other than that, it was pretty matter of fact. And the ship does a lot of things to try to make it easy for the passengers, having the custom folks on board and such. But it wasn't really much of a problem other than China. China they were a bugger.
Building that you went up in Shanghai, was that elevator a glass elevator where you could see out, or was it enclosed?
It was enclosed. Yes. And it was a treat. I never enjoyed an elevator like that. Nor a train ride. It was just so unique to see that technology, applied to something very practical and used by everybody. It was quite something. Yes.
For several days.
Some we were in just one day. We like Vietnam, we were in 3 days. In Thailand, we were in 3 days. Some 2, some 1, and also really you get a brief snapshot of the country and the countryside. It's certainly not anything in depth, but it also gives you that, the Reader's Digest appreciation of the country, and if it trips your trigger, you can go back and see something more in depth. But this was a great opportunity to see all those countries, get a taste for all of them in one fell swoop. Mike.
Do you have any idea how much it would have cost
to ride that magnetic train?
I really don't. But I have a feeling, Shanghai is an expensive place. So it would have been pretty dear, but,
For a local, would it cost a different amount?
I just don't remember what it was. Yes, Mary.
Go back to good in depth.
I'd go back in a flash to Singapore. That was the most breathtaking city I've ever been in. But it was a city, so I mean, you're limited to city life and all, but it was just gorgeous. And we loved Thailand. It just had all the features that made it very comfortable for tourists. Very friendly, very beautiful, very easy to get around. We'd never go back to Cambodia. We'd never go back to, be honest with you, I would have liked to have seen China, but it never works out here. I would want to see, the Great Wall, Tiananmen Square and such, but it's not necessarily in the cards for us to go. But it was once again an opportunity to see get some more countries under our belt, and we just so enjoy travel, and cruise travel was the best for us because we go from port to port, country to country, in great comfort and enjoyable, meet fabulous, interesting folks from all over the world, and save your energy for your excursions at the ports. Yes, Teresa. It's 35 days. We've done longer, we've done shorter. We just did South America was 51 days. And we found that was probably 10 or 12 days too long for us. But we've done in the 40s and 30s and 151s. Yes.
Are you gonna come back and do those presentations to South America and Australia and New Zealand?
But if it's by popular demand,
Yeah.
will consider it. Okay, is that it? Well, thanks very much for